Hello, guys. Welcome back to Online Latin 2. Hope you guys had a good weekend. Let's get right into our schedule for this week. Today, we're going to translate the first part of a passage from Cicero's Catilinarian, which we've looked at before and we're going to return to. On Wednesday, you're going to turn in your translation of the second half of this passage. And then on Friday, we're going to take our first online translation quiz, which I'll talk more about at the end of the video. It's a translation quiz for chapter 20. And then the video for Friday, we will take notes on chapter 21, which is just the third and fourth conjugation passive verb endings. So it's like a sequel to chapter 18, basically, and shouldn't be too difficult. All right. Very dire correction for the first translation in Friday's video from your homework, right? I completely botched this sentence by leaving out a word and changing the verb. And I probably would have remained oblivious to this error had someone not told me about this. So thank you to Allie from the 8th grade for alerting me to this. Yeah, that was really bad. My excuse, I guess, is that I don't have the physical workbook, so I was like flipping back and forth between looking at the screenshot and typing it when I should have just pasted the screenshot onto the slide I was typing on. Like, obviously. Yeah, so that was a mess. Sorry about that. Definitely started out your video on Friday in a confusing manner. But this would be from which mountains has that swift river flowed, which is way less awkward than what I thought it was. All right, so this quibus is an interrogative adjective, which is definitely worth talking about. Remember, qui quod will not always be a relative pronoun. It can be an interrogative pronoun or adjective in the context of a sentence. I mean, of a question rather. So that's it's the latter here. It's interrogative adjective. The difference, remember, is an interrogative pronoun is asking this more open-ended question, as in something like "What are we doing today?" versus an interrogative adjective, which is asking a more specific question about something within the sentence. So, like, which activity are we doing today? Would be an interrogative adjective. And that's what this one is. The way you can tell is that it is agreeing in case, number, and gender with Montibus. Um, yeah, so they're both ablative, technically an ablative of place from which. Uh, yeah, and then again, this was from fluo. This verb was fluo fluora, not fuit from sum esse. All right, that was yeah. Okay, we're gonna look at that Catilinarian. So let me just run through a quick summary of Catiline just to refresh you guys. He is born in 108, so he's a little older than Julius Caesar, who's born in 100. He's about the same age as Cicero. He's from this old Roman family, the gens Sergia, um, which, yeah, it's an older Roman family. He's not just known for this conspiracy towards the end of his life. He also did some other kind of heinous things, including carrying out a proscription under Sulla during Sulla's reign of terror against his own brother. So even when he was young, he was kind of a shady character. He lost a consular election in 64 and 63 back to back, the latter of which was against Cicero, who won that consular election, which partly led Catiline to carry out this conspiracy along with some other Roman senators. They wanted to overthrow Cicero and threaten Rome with their army that they had built up and amassed over time of people who were supporting Catiline. So Catiline did have some supporters. He was known as a demagogue, which is a fancy term for a politician who riles up people based on emotion and their kind of baser instincts, as opposed to logic and reason, which is the idea of what a politician is supposed to be operating under. Um, and so Cicero calls him out for this. He takes great pride in uncovering Catiline's plot upon discovering or intercepting a letter between Catiline and one of his co-conspiring senators. And he calls him out in the Senate. He tells him to leave while they kind of build a case against him. Um, and Catiline leaves, rendezvous with an army he has outside of Rome, and then is promptly defeated. Okay, so this is on page 166, this passage. This is the part we're going to translate today in today's video, and you're going to do the second half for this week's homework. All right, we only have 3 glossed terms for the whole passage. Consultum, second declension neuter, means decree. Vehemens vehementis, which means vehement, go figure. And sceleratus is wicked or criminal. Don't we have that word? I guess not. But it's similar to some words we have. All right, so the way this is going to work is I'm going to show you a sentence from this one at a time, and you're going to pause the video and work through it on your own. But for a handful of these sentences, I do have like a tip or something to say about 1 or 2 of the words before you actually get into it yourself, just to kind of help the process out. But yeah, please do take that seriously and actually pause it and spend at least a couple minutes, if not more, working through it on your own. So in this first sentence, I want to show you guys the ending to the fourth declension nouns once again, because we have senatus senatus showing up as our second word here. That is fourth declension, and the macron over the U is telling us that this is going to be one of 3 different cases. So it can either be nominative plural, genitive singular, or accusative plural. And the context helps us understand which it is, of course, as always. So habemus is first person plural, right? The subject of that is going to be we. So this is Cicero speaking from the perspective of and on behalf of the Senate, right? And the consultum, what could consultum be? It could either be a subject or a direct object. And it wouldn't make sense for it to be a subject, right? We already said the subject's going to be we. We're not personifying the decree. We're not speaking from the perspective of the decree. That'd be weird. But yeah, senatus is kind of doing something interesting here. It's kind of basically an object complement to a dropped subject. So give this a shot on your own and then press play. All right, so it turns out that senatus would have to be the subject. It can't really be a direct object because it looks like consultum is going to be the direct object. And so, like I said, senatus is basically just an object complement to the we that we get from habemus being first person plural. So we, comma, the Senate, and then now I'm going to move on ahead with the rest of the translation, have a decree against you, Catiline, vehement and grave in nature. All right, so consultum turns out to be the direct object. And then contra te, I don't think we've actually seen contra show up yet, weirdly. We got it last chapter. That is a preposition that takes an accusative. So te here is an accusative. And remember, I said I would use like a dark red or like maroon type color for accusative objects, prepositions that take accusatives. So that's what that is doing. Catiline is vocative. He's literally addressing Catiline in person. Remember, Catiline is actually in the Senate when Cicero is delivering this first Catilinarian. And then vehemens et grave, those are kind of weird. They're third declension adjectives. They're neuter, so they can be nominative or accusative. And it turns out that they're just accusative agreeing with consultum. So he's describing what kind of decree this is, basically. Yeah, consultum is neuter, so these are both neuter too. Grave, you should be able to tell that is a third declension neuter, nominative or accusative ending. And yeah, we haven't seen vehemens before, but that can be accusative as well. All right, moving on to the second one. The one little tip I want to give you for this guy before you try on your own is that this vires in the second part of the sentence is from vis, which is that really irregular third declension noun meaning strength or forces. It is not from wir. It's not like men or something. That is a third declension ending, so it could not be from the second declension wir. All right, give this one a shot, and then press play when you're ready. All right, so acre eudicium, we get something like, we have a fierce judgment, or a keen or intense judgment. So eudicium is taking, once again, we have a neuter third declension accusative in acre. And habemus is first person plural, just like our it was in the first sentence. And then the second part, what could this be? So vires is either a nominative or accusative plural. We keep ending up with these words that could either be like a subject or a direct object. It's very common. But if we read the rest of the sentence, we have enough context information to understand that it can't be the subject. It would have to be a direct object because kiwitas is nominative for one thing, and vires, though it could be nominative, would not agree with habet because it's nominative plural, whereas habet, that last word in the sentence, is third person singular. So that'd be something like, and our state has forces and a plan. Meaning it's like we have this decree, we have this plan, we've uncovered your plot, and we have the means by which to remove you if it comes to that. But yeah, Cicero was basically just telling him to leave prior to it, and in lieu of just arresting him on the spot. Rome was bound by constitutional guidelines and restrictions, and they didn't have enough of a body of evidence to arrest him on the spot. But he is calling him out, basically as a way to dissuade him from, burning down Rome. All right, we can move through this one pretty quickly because it's pretty straightforward. There's not a ton going on. So go ahead and pause it and give it a shot. The D is from Deus. All right, so that'd be something like, what is it, Catiline? Why do you remain, oh immortal God? So he's saying, like, what is our plan? And why do you, like, what is your plan, basically? Why are you still here? Oh gosh, as it were, kind of. That's like an interjection. He just, like, kind of expressing disbelief here. All right, moving on to a more grammatically dense one. Discede nunc ex hoc urba cum mala manus sceleratorum. This discedera is a new vocab word for this chapter, meaning to depart or leave. And then the only other thing I want to say before you try this one is that manus is often hand, as in like a literal hand, but it is very commonly used pretty figuratively as well. And it can also mean this very like different thing, which is more like band or faction, as in like a group of people. So that's the only other definition our book actually gives for manus. But if you look at like a dictionary entry, it can actually be used in all sorts of figurative ways. But anyway, translate it here as band or faction. All right, so hopefully you got something like depart from the city. So discede, its mood is imperative, right? That's an imperative verb. That E ending, that should be a giveaway that it's not some kind of like normal indicative verb. We don't have any indicative verbs ending in just like an E like that. Leave now from the city, ex hoc urba, ex hoc urba, according to my color coding, is ablative, and that is an ablative. Well, you guys tell me, is it an ablative of place from which or separation? Yeah, that's right. It's the former, right? It's an ablative of place from which. Urba is definitely a place, and so yeah, that's pretty straightforward. And then when we have two ablative prepositional phrases right next to each other, I'll just use two separate or slightly separate shades of green. So kum mala manu, that would be something like with the evil band of of wickedness or crime. So he's kind of calling out the conspirators that are working with Catiline. All right, magno metume liberabis, si omnes estos coniratos tecum eduques. Before you do this one, they don't gloss this word, educo, educera, but that means to lead away. So it's kind of like duco, ducera, but it has a slightly more nuanced sense to it. All right, give this one a shot. Okay, hopefully you ended up with something like, you will liberate me from fear. Magno metu, hopefully you understood to be ablative. You may have not totally gotten exactly what kind of ablative it was, and I'll get into that. But metus is one of our new fourth declension words, meaning fear or anxiety. And if it's a masculine or feminine fourth declension noun, this long U can only be ablative. But then it's a question of what kind of ablative. You might have initially thought it's an ablative of means, But our verb here is libera liberare, which, as we saw in electiones from last week, will often take an ablative of separation. So this is actually ablative separation. You will liberate me from fear. And so me is the direct object. Liberabis is future tense. And then, yeah, that's what would make sense in the context of having the verb libera liberare around. You will liberate me with fear. Just doesn't really make sense in terms of context. But yeah, that is very kind of context sensitive and just kind of understanding how libero functions commonly. All right, and the second part, pretty straightforward. That would be something like, well, for one thing, it's a condition to our result that we start with. So this will happen if you lead away all of those conspirators of yours with yourself. So eduques is also future tense here, though we don't need to actually translate it that way, given that it's a condition. Omnes istos coniratos is accusative plural. That is the direct object here. And then te cum is an ablative use of te, ablative of accompaniment. It's kind of a rare time when an ablative of accompaniment is reflexive. You want to translate it reflexively. You don't want to say lead all of those conspirators away with you. You want to say with yourself, right? So give it the reflexive sense because eduques is second person singular, meaning the subject is you. All right, good. And I think we have like two more. So, nisi no disquedes te kito ikimos. Let's see here. Give this one a shot and then move ahead. But this verb, I don't know if we maybe seen this once before. It's similar to iakio, but it's instead of just throw or hurl, it's more like throw out or expel. Okay, give it a shot. Hopefully you ended up with something like this. Unless you depart now or leave now, we will throw you out. Once again, we have a third conjugation future tense verb. This one is kind of, well, once again, we have a future tense verb. I don't know if we've had, yeah, we did. But most of our verbs are future tense in terms of when he's warning him about something or telling him to do something. So it's that third conjugation future tense ending with the E, M-U-S. And te is the direct object here. We will throw you out quickly unless you depart now, right? So we saw nisi and electiones from last week, and we're seeing it again to set up this condition. All right, moving on ahead to our last one for today. Nihil and civitate nostra te delectare potest age. Delecto delectare, this is the verb meaning delight or please. It is not deleo deleri, though it does look similar to that. So don't get it mixed up with that. And give this one a shot. All right, so hopefully you figured out that civitate nostra is an ablative of place where, along with in. It's the object of in. I should have put in the green, I guess. Yeah, and that's why, or civitas must be feminine. It is, and that's why nostra is getting the long A there to agree in terms of case, number, and gender. And then te is a direct object here. Good. So, and nihil ends up being the subject. So it's like nothing in our state can please you, meaning like nothing in Rome is going to be good for you at this point now that we've uncovered your plot. So you better just get out, buddy. I think Cicero thought that he would just leave and not come back, and they were still kind of finding out details about the fact that he actually had a whole army, which means that this was not a problem that was going to solve itself just by exposing it and bringing it to light. And then age is, once again, we have an imperative. That's kind of like act, like do the thing I'm telling you to do. But if you want to kind of take it as like go, that's okay. Because, yeah, it's just, it's basically like telling Catiline to do the things that Cicero has been urging him to do all along. So we can kind of just pick up on the other verbs that are showing up, like discedo, discedera. And it's like he's saying, like, get out, like, do the things I'm saying to do. All right. This is the part you are going to translate on your own. It's basically just 4 sentences, and you are going to enter it into Wednesday's form before watching Wednesday's video. So since having something to do on Tuesday night was a little awkward maybe in terms of you guys having to re-access a form, a day later after getting the link to it initially. I'll just have you start off Wednesday's quote unquote class by entering in your translation of this, then watching the video. So please do it in that order. Yeah, you guys know I never penalize you for making mistakes in your translation. That is part of learning Latin, is making mistakes. So don't worry about the translation being perfect or not. Just enter in what you end up getting from working through it on your own, and then you can watch me give you hopefully the correct translations without making any serious typos. And then on Thursday we will have that translation quiz. Oh, and by the way, I will paste this part of the reading will be in the Google Forms for today, but also it is on page 166 of your textbook, which hopefully you actually have that. But even if you don't, you can, like, there it is. Oh, and there's no glossed words in this as far as I can tell, but manlium there, that fourth word, that is a name. It's the general to Catiline's little militia that he put together. So that's just something about Manlius there in the accusative. Okay. So that is kind of important. I'll gloss that when I type it up. But the translation quiz on Friday. It's going to be like a normal translation quiz. It'll just actually be on a Google form. So one of the lectiones will show up, and I'll use either 2, 3, 4, or 5, and not number 1 because of the crazy typos I made. And then the second one will be from this Catiline reading, likely one of the ones you guys do for Wednesday, since that's a little more fresh than the Hercules story. And then there will be a third sentence which I write and will be totally new. And I'll ask some specific questions about some of these words. You can definitely expect I'll be asking about some ablatives. I'll be wanting you to tell me if it's an ablative of separation or place from which, right? Since those are the two new ablatives, those are going to be showing up for sure in terms of what I'm actually underlining and asking about. And I will be asking about the cases of fourth declension nouns. So yeah, on Friday, you're just going to want to review your fourth declension endings, review the vocabulary from chapter 20, and then probably look at the lectiones and the Catiline reading. And then you can take it, and please, be honest in terms of how you are taking it. You are going to want to put your lectiones away. You can spend, 30 plus minutes looking over it, but then when you actually start the quiz, you need to go into it with all your stuff having been put up. But anyway, I trust you guys, so please take that seriously. I'm sure a lot of your teachers are kind of having these same discussions with you at this point, but yep. All right. Good luck with the rest of the Catiline reading, and I will talk to you guys on Wednesday.